What mistake do you think a 25-year-old is making?
The number of people changing jobs every 2 years. Why? Because you want to get the next hike.
Compounding the wrong thing.
You're compounding the wrong thing. You cannot make a difference unless you're there for 4, 5, 6 years.
How do 25-year-olds change their context?
You don't have to change companies. I stayed for 15 years in one company. How many 25-year-olds go ask their boss, I want to do more? 98 to 2000, I was in University of Michigan. They actually teach you. Here is how you go do a networking evening. Have a business card. Spend 3-4 minutes with each person. Circulate in the room. When you're talking to the person, focus on the person.
And then McKinsey happened.
So I joined as a business analyst in McKinsey.
What was the method of learning at McKinsey?
There was a practice in McKinsey called design to value, DTV. How do you develop products that consumers love at the right cost? How do you decide what is the right quality of a product that a customer will pay for? And how do you decide how to design the product most efficiently? The best way in McKinsey client development is to co-create a problem statement that you can jointly work on and add value, as opposed to trying to sell. And that's a good skill that even for an entrepreneur.
How do you do that?
First is deep understanding of consumer. The second is what's called product tear down. So you take products, tear it down into component pieces and build up the cost and say, how do you actually build this?
I want like a one quick case study on this DTV thing.
So MyFitness is our peanut butter brand. We would go to every shelf, take photos and say, how will the jar stand out in a large shelf in a retail store? Then we get into every second Saturday. There are people here in the office. You would do blind tasting across 5-6 different peanut butters and you give a rating.
Do you think today's entrepreneurs can actually create long-term value without understanding tech?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Anand.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are
Very
you?
cool office.
Thank
Mind
you.
giving us a tour?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is exactly that you do here?
Fitness, healthy snacking.
This one?
Right there. Let's go see it. Basically, we do peanut butter. We do rolled oats. We do sports nutrition. So we're building a healthy snacking brand. Health ka tasty partner.
Health Cut is partner.
This is the largest peanut butter brand in the country.
Wow.
The second is we've built a global aromatherapy brand, Majestic Pure. India makes a lot of essential oils, massage oils, but we've never built a brand. So think about this. We basically have an apricot oil, which is a massage oil, pure and natural. We sell in the US mostly, Canada, Germany, UAE, and now we're a market leader.
Market leader? Second largest, third largest?
We will be the second largest online, and we're continuing to build and scale, which I think is fascinating. And then we have a bunch of lifestyle businesses, right? Which I think is fantastic.
The plan is to take a few of them while I leave.
Yeah, absolutely. You're the right audience, so it works well. So this is just again very fashion forward, very affordable, very interesting. And I then wanted to show you another business which is a little bit fascinating and under the radar.
Yeah.
We have the largest party celebration business in India, second largest in the US, and I think third largest in Canada. All made here and sold globally. So the brand actually is party props, all of the rest, right? This is a pub.
Yeah.
There are lots of interesting things for birthday parties. There are things that you can do for Ganesh Chaturthi. It's a fascinating, it's unorganized to organized.
Yeah.
And I think it's starting to become large. We've built a fairly large global business around party celebration, which is design-led, which I feel very excited about. It makes every celebration matter.
How did you build all these 4-5 businesses?
Long story. Why don't we go sit down and I'll tell you how we build brands, consumer brands globally.
Let's go.
Yeah, done.
Let's go back to University of Madras. How did you get into that? What did you learn there? Engineering, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I didn't get in anywhere else. I think this is a short answer. I actually applied to the US, got into US colleges, but my parents, I think at that point, decided that I can't go to the US, and I hadn't taken the IIT exam. I hadn't done any of this. So with my grades, because if you want to go to the US, you focus on SATs and application and all that. The 12th grade almost doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I got in, didn't go. And then the only place I got into with my grades was University of Madras, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It was very relaxed, chilled out. Unlike many of the undergrads now, it was a very relaxed, chilled out place. I was at home and traveling to college. It was an hour by bus each way, but it was great. I have lifelong friends that I made there. And I think engineering taught me a lot. I think, engineering is problem solving. So, you sort of focus a lot on how do you solve a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of stayed with me. So really enjoyed it. It was a very relaxed, interesting
I've heard
time.
this a lot, that engineers equal to problem solving. Where does this mindset come from?
I think your ability to break a large problem down to smaller pieces, I think is very core to engineering. And the second is, you eliminate one tree, there are different lines in a tree and you eliminate each one and you get to the core problem, right?
Okay.
That skill, I think, is important. Being able to break a complex problem down into simple parts and then prioritizing the parts that will move the needle. That's a classic engineering problem. If you want to sort of solve an engine trouble, you go through the same root cause analysis as you would for a business problem. So I think it trains you well.
Like looking at all the variables, cutting them one by one.
Cutting one by one and then figuring out what is it that really actually moves the needle. So prioritization, the framework, we come to McKinsey in a bit, is which is sort of stood me is called MECE. MECE. Mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive.
Okay.
So you get all parts of the tree and you make, you get that framing right, you get to those solve any problem.
This is like a framework.
It's a framework.
Yeah, I actually want to know what frameworks I'll
sure.
now. But then okay. And then 98, then 99 you went to McKinsey. How did that happen?
No. 98 to 2000 I was in University of Michigan. So I desperately wanted to leave Madras, Chennai. Now, at that time it was still Madras. And University of Michigan offered me the best scholarship. Right? So.
But why did you want to leave so badly?
I felt like I'd lived all my life in Madras. I'd never traveled. I felt like it was important to sort of go out and see the world. In my generation, at that point of time, I think everybody wanted to go abroad for something because it was also just easier to get to. And it was unaffordable for most people, right? As you thought about undergrad, by the way, I got in and didn't go. So I was desperate to go out and live on my own.
Okay.
Applied to all sorts of places, Georgia Tech, Michigan. I got lots of admissions, but figured out that Michigan offered me the best financial aid. So decided I would go there. That I think was a turning point for me because you sort of...
So it was not about the degree, it was more about the environment.
It was the environment. I mean, just like lots of freedom, right? You don't have to call a professor sir. Your ability to take courses in anything, right, was not there in, most engineering colleges. I did mechanical engineering, so it was very clear from the very beginning what you were studying.
This is what you have to do.
Yeah, so that wasn't the case. I ended up doing operations research in Michigan. It was 18 months to get I was in the PhD program, but sort of dropped out since I got a job with McKinsey and it was paying well and so on. So I decided I'd go there. But in 18 months, I finished my master's degree. But that was life changing, right? Because you sort of figured out an environment where you could do whatever you wanted. You could be more creative.
What do you learn on the soft skill side and on the hard skill side?
So soft skills, I think, is being able to ask for something. It seems in India, most times you don't go ask. You sort of assume that, the ability to ask questions without fear is an important skill. I think that's been true for me all through because you actually are usually scared because the question may be stupid, but actually it's not. And so I think the US education encourages you to think independently, I think. I think that's true now in many Indian universities, but at that time, maybe it wasn't. And for me, I think being able to ask questions freely, being able to explore intellectually whatever you wanted to do, I think that was probably the biggest soft skill. Ability to go up to somebody and ask a question.
Okay.
And the ability to go talk to anybody.
Any nuance that you noticed, like how did you learn this?
Firstly, it's very structured in Michigan, right? I'd never attended a networking event before.
Okay.
Right? In India, you don't go to networking events. I still remember with shock that there was actually an event where all you did was to go to meet people. Right? It's not normal, right? And now it seems very obvious, but it's not till you go do it. And I think being able to go to a networking event, they actually teach you saying, have a business card, spend 3-4 minutes with each person, circulate in the room. When you're talking to the person, focus on the person. Nobody tells you any of these things.
This is part of the
It's part of the career counseling program in Michigan.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so they say, here is how you go do a networking evening. And I think that actually stayed with me, right? So you end up meeting lots of interesting people. You end up asking questions. You end up saying, look, I want to do this, and there's no ceiling on what you can dream about and what you can ask for. Right? You ask, you may get a no, but you go and ask at least, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was a big, interesting nuance.
Got it. And then McKinsey happened in 2000.
McKinsey happened in 2000. So I joined as a business analyst in McKinsey. I stayed with McKinsey for 14 years.
You mentioned that you chose McKinsey because you were impressed by the interviewer, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
What was that story?
So, look, I interviewed with almost all the consulting firms, right? McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Carney, etc. There's a guy called Felix Brock. I still remember distinctly. I'm still in touch with him. He's long retired. A German guy who basically, the way he interviewed you, right? He was fully present. He was like a very senior guy at that time. But he sort of treated me as if I was a peer. And I thought that was quite interesting, right? And just the conversational style. The other thing that was interesting is, by the way, most people said why they were better than McKinsey. As I was thinking about consulting offers. McKinsey never talked about anybody else.
Oh, okay.
And I thought that was also a good sign. So I joined McKinsey as a BA. I was one of the first operations business analysts that McKinsey actually hired, now to the Cleveland office. It was life-changing for me because, you suddenly realize that the level of competition, who you actually work with. See, I think you're the sum of the parts of the people that you surround yourself with in many ways,
100%.
right? And if you surround yourself with a great group of people, it changes you. And that's what McKinsey does. I still think as an organization, one of the most interesting things that it's the talent density and the number of motivated people that you have around you is incredible. And that sort of changes you as a person, as a leader. It makes you sort of want to do more and stretch more. I ended up always saying I'll stay for 2 years in McKinsey. I ended up staying for 15.
Yeah.
Right? So, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm personally a big believer in evolving fast. Like I like to believe that every 6 months I should be a different person. Like if you look at 6 months old podcasts or like photos of mine, it should be like this looks like a 2-year-old picture.
Yeah.
I feel like going to the US or like traveling in countries like that just completely changes you. 1 month in the US and you're like a completely different person.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like when you said the Michigan thing.
That's right.
And that's what it sounds like again when you said the McKinsey thing.
But so that also really helps you grow, right? But I think each of these, life is a progression, right? And one of my biggest core beliefs is you should never stop learning. And one way to keep learning is to keep changing your context.
Okay.
Because changing of context makes you uncomfortable. And discomfort leads to learning, right? So I'll give you an example, right? I was in Cleveland. I was a business analyst doing very well. In McKinsey, you have a program called Direct to Associate. So, you can go from analyst to associate without a business school degree. And I got selected. It's a competitive program. I don't know, maybe 1-2% of all business analysts get there. I could have just stayed in Cleveland. I had a great comfort ecosystem. Those partners knew me, etc. My wife and I decided we'd go to China because China was the hot thing. You remember in 2001-2, right? I think I remember at that point
the IBM deal and all that.
IBM and Lenovo happened, right? So, company out of nowhere bought IBM's PC division. It's quite iconic. So we decided we'd just go, right? We'd never been to China. Never, right? We decided we'd up and leave.
Your what age right now? 27, 28?
Sorry?
Your age is like 27, 28 right now?
No. I was 24, 25.
24, 25?
Yeah, that time. Yeah. It's 24, 25. Right? So, essentially 2 years into McKinsey, right? So I was 25. And it was again life-changing because again, you get used to a new culture. We were also very fortunate. That was the time when China was going through an inflection. You saw the internet boom, right? Alibaba, Tencent, JD, all took off around that time.
Okay, so I want to pause you here and ask a parallel question before we continue the story.
Yeah.
So via story, I'm also trying to take out anecdotes and actionables for the viewers. Now, most people in India, they get into a job, or let's say even entrepreneurs, for example, like I'm running a company. When we're running a company or when we're in a job, we just keep doing that for at least 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's very difficult for us to change context. Like if I'm running a company, I'm in my 5th year right now, 4 years, 3 months to be precise. How do I change my context, or how do people, 25-year-olds, change their context?
Yeah.
You had the opportunity also in the sense that you work at McKinsey, so you could take that leap of faith from take a US to China.
Yeah.
So how can we do that?
I actually think it's more in your control than you think.
Okay.
Even in McKinsey, there are people who never moved out of Cleveland, never moved out of Chicago. I think it's in your sort of ability. First is you have to think, right? You have to want to do it, right? Because changing context sounds sexy, sounds cool, but it's very painful.
Yeah.
Because it leads to a lot of setbacks, right? You move to a new country, you lose all your connects. It's a bet. By definition, risk reward, right? And not all risk leads to reward.
100%.
So I think first you want to do it. And I think there you have to have an inherent belief that over time, taking risk and changing context is helpful to you. And you need to be convinced.
Okay.
It's not an intuitive thing, right? The reality is in McKinsey, there's a very straight path from associate to partner.
Yeah.
You could just play that role.
Yeah.
You just have to be competitive. You work hard and you get there. Changing geographies actually is a counterintuitive thing to do in McKinsey because actually you lose your clients, you lose your context. The reason so going back a little bit, why do it? I think for me, some of it was internal, but some of it was having great mentors.
Okay.
Right? So the same guy that I was telling you, the German guy that I was telling you about, actually is continued to take, by the way, he moved from Germany to the US. Right? And that's how I met him. So he was saying, go and explore a different geography. It's the best way to learn. So actually having people push you into an uncomfortable, having a mentor early in life for every 25-year-old is an important thing. And mentors, it's about chemistry. It doesn't, there's no right or wrong mentor. But if you have someone who you can speak to who's not involved in your day-to-day and has a little bit of a bird's eye view, I think that is a huge help. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two is Look, you don't have to change geography to change context. You can change roles, right? You can basically, and you don't have to change companies. I mean, that's the other thing I will tell people. Most people keep changing companies. I stayed for 15 years in one company. I've actually only worked in 3 companies. This is not really work. I mean, I'm just sort of, this is, building, right? But I've only worked actually in 3 companies. And there is power to longevity. So one of the things I don't want people to get confused about is change doesn't mean changing a company. It means changing context within a company.
Got it.
Right?
Makes sense.
So every 2 years, can you change your role? How many 25-year-olds go ask their boss, I want to do more? Or I want to try something different. Right? We have a ton of examples of people at brand.me who have come in operations roles and become brand managers. There have been people, by the way, who are coming in as engineers who are becoming social media influencers and doing marketing. Now, most times that comes from them because intuitively it wouldn't make sense for us to think about these guys. But if somebody comes to you and says, I want to do something, most people are open.
Yeah. So it's a part of your culture at brand.me as well.
I think so. I think it's part of the culture. And I would say for every 25-year-old listening, 1, longevity and compounding in an organization is not bad. 2, have a mentor. 3, keep changing context and go ask for opportunity. If you ask for opportunity, 50% of the time you'll get it. But why not go ask? Very few people go and ask.
So you moved to China.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting sort of time. Also, I made some very good friends from China who I'm still in touch with. I think the other thing, you talk about network and sort of a web of people.
Yeah.
Knowing people, you never know. You can't, it's not a predictable process. So the more relationships you can build, genuine relationships you can build, I think the better you do in life. Right? And so the folks from China that I'm still in touch with have been helpful for me in Myntra, have been helpful for me in brand.me, right? I mean, and they sort of, so you never know, right? I could never have predicted that when I was sort of an associate or an engagement manager in China. Right?
Yeah.
So that was hugely helpful. So that was 2 years in China.
You mentioned networking. I just want to ask, what is your, everybody has a way of building a relationship. Some people do it very strategically. Ki, I want to be in his good books, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. What is your way of doing it like?
Mine is enjoy the moment.
Okay.
I actually, by the way, find chemistry is the most important. You can't create it. So
the vibe.
I like some people and, I actually, I'll restate that. I find things that I can vibe with in a person. Okay. Does that make sense? Everybody has
common
their
things
own common things. And you have to discover it. But if you discover common things, it actually makes a huge difference, right? And you need some genuine interest in the other person. Otherwise, it's very, very hard, right? Transactional networking never works.
Yeah.
Right?
I think वो vibe भी पता लग जाती है.
100%, right? And right? I mean, actually within the first half an hour, you have a sense, right? And if you don't, it's okay. Life is short. You don't have to network with everybody. My belief is there are some people you connect with. And then you stay in touch with them for a long period of time. There are many others that you don't connect with, and that's okay, right? So I don't think of it as strategic at all. I think of it as who can you connect with? There has to be a personal connect of some kind. And if it connects, so I'm now skipping chapters, but after Myntra, I spent 6 months. In those 6 months, by the way, I wanted to meet 100 interesting people, right? So I just wrote to people and just went and met them, right? I mean, it was quite amazing. All sorts of people. This was not business people, right? I mean, I met a guy from University of Berkeley. I met the director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, right? So I met interesting people, right? And of course, some business people as well. But, out of the 100 people, there are 25 that I connected with. Those 25, I continue to stay in touch with. And they've enriched my life. You don't need to network with everybody. You need a few genuine relationships. That's what matters.
Yeah. So, what's a no-go according to you when it comes to vibes of people? I'm sure you know patterns and people people should be careful of.
So one, I feel people who gossip too much, I don't do anything with. I generally I think that's one.
It's a good one.
The second one, I think, is some people are more negative than positive. So you get a vibe, right? I mean, there are different ways to sort of think about, do you see the positive or the negative at all points of time? I'm generally an optimist. Right? In all tough situations also you sort of see what are the upsides, right? So some people bring you down, some people give you energy.
Got it.
So focus on the people who give you energy, not the ones who take away the energy.
Fair. Okay. So China you're talking about. Can you go deeper into like what did you learn about China? Because 2002, 3, 4, 5 and today we know where China is.
Yeah.
What?
So, Ayush, maybe three things. The first is execution. I think the ability to get stuff done is underrated.
Yeah.
I think people think strategy, ideas, I think they're absolutely important. But execution is like 80%. And for me, I mean, I'll give you two random examples, okay? In China, your maids are called Ais, A-Y. I means aunt, right? So, you call them aunt and they sort of work with you. So we had
even in like India tier 3 I used to call my I in Talcher Odisha. Yeah.
So an I is, we had a great I, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that was interesting is she learned South Indian food, right? And how to make rasam and upma in 7 days. And then just look at the ambition levels, right? When we left China, she basically in her resume updated saying she's a South Indian chef and then moved up in life, right? So the ability to sort of learn very quickly and execute flawlessly. So execution is number one, right? So I said three things. The second, I think, is learnability. China is like a vacuum pump as far as learning is concerned. I was in McKinsey. I've worked in McKinsey across multiple geographies, multiple clients.
Yeah.
I have never seen clients who learn so much as the ones from China, right? Their ability at all levels in the organization to basically absorb and learn is like next level. And I think that was fascinating for me, right? I mean, I was an ops person. You would go in, there would be a mid-level manager and a client who would basically come, I mean, it wasn't his job. He would come and spend 2 hours in the night understanding how to do an operations research model, right? It wasn't going to be immediately helpful to him, but their ability to absorb and learn, I think, was fascinating. The third, at least for me, was very interesting, and I think we're starting to do more of it here also, is that it was a very, very, very long-term thinking government. And what I mean by that is, you sort of decided that 5 years you want to be in semiconductors, 10 years you want to be in semiconductors, right? Your ability to invest in R&D over long periods of time without much return. I mean, we're seeing the benefits of that with DeepSeek, right? But DeepSeek is an outcome.
Yeah.
It was 10 years of long-term R&D investment, which I think enabled things like this to happen. So the ability to be very long-term in your thinking was the third big thing that I took away. So I think for me, the three things: execution, learnability, and long-term thinking, especially around R&D. I think are things that stood out for me even in 2002, right? You knew that this was going to explode. And I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. Coming to the learnability point, is it like coming from a place of education culture? I feel my bias, like personally, I feel I'm decent at learnability, but I'm nowhere close to what you mentioned.
Yeah.
How do you adapt? Like, is it like a problem? Is it changeable at 25, 26, 27?
I think so. I think learnability is a skill. Like public speaking, right? The more you practice it, the better you get at it. So what are the characteristics of learnability? The first, I think, is curiosity. I think most of us lose our curiosity as we grow older. I think, how do you keep your curiosity alive? And how do you ask questions? We spoke about these questions, right? I think that's a large part of learnability, right? The second is, I think you need a method to learn, right? You can write, you can give yourself voice notes, you can read, whatever your thing is, but you need a structured approach to learning.
Okay.
Right? You can listen to podcasts like people are doing now.
Yeah.
You can read a book, but you need to sort of figure out that method of learning. So first is curiosity. The second is create a method of learning that works for you. The third is, by the way, meet lots and lots and lots of people. So the way I learn a new thing is, and I've gone from auto to fashion to healthcare to now consumer brands, right? One, you meet everybody in the supply chain. You start with raw material all the way to the end consumer, and you meet different people. The more you meet people, the more you learn. Right? The second is, by the way, put some money into a new space. Right? It's the easiest way to learn. I mean, I don't do that much angel investing anymore, but when I used to do it, it was primarily for learning.
Got it.
Right? You sort of get into a company, then you start to learn a little bit more of it. Right? So meeting lots of people and maybe putting some way to invest or learn in that space and just get fully absorbed.
Got it.
I think are the ways to sort of
Without any agenda of like, this will help me later.
Without any agenda, right? So, and these become skills, right? So it's like public speaking. So if you take one thing away, learning is like public speaking. You can actually get better at it. You just need curiosity, a structured method, and some way to get deep into one area. It can be an investment, it can be pro bono of your time, whatever, right? But figure out some way to go deep.
So your method of learning is talking to people, meeting
My
people.
method of learning is talking to people. I just talk to lots of people very quickly, and then you get a very good sense.
Got it. And what was the method of learning at McKinsey? Because like Consultant, McKinsey, BCG, all these companies, they're so good at teaching people about different businesses across sectors. What was that model? Like, if you can tell me a framework.
So McKinsey is a very much an apprenticeship based model. What I mean by that is 80% of the learning happens on the job. So there is no separate learning agenda. The way you learn is you learn on a consulting engagement. You learn from your seniors. There is a culture of giving back. What I mean by that is if you're an engagement manager, you train an associate. If you're a partner, you train an engagement manager. It's sort of expected, right? So that's the apprenticeship model, right? It's like the old world sort of skills guilds of the world, right?
Vibes.
Your mentor-mentee vibes, right? And there it's structured because your expectation is you apprentice a person. When you become a manager, one of the things they'll tell you is your goal is to make sure there are 3 other engagement managers. See, also remember it's a partnership model. It's not a corporate model where you have a small number of people on the top and then everybody else will have to wait, right? Everybody here can go up.
Correct.
You know that you're going to be a peer. So you almost feel like you're creating a better version of yourself every time by mentoring somebody. And I think that culture runs strong. And I think that's why there's so much learnability, right? So on the job learning is the only way in my view. Apprenticeship and on the job. 2 things, apprenticeship on the job.
Even today it's a big deal. Like a few of my friends are in McKinsey. They keep telling me that's the aim.
Correct. So enjoyed it. And I think McKinsey is filled with interesting, very bright people. And so it's a great environment. Again, going back to learnability, it's a great environment to learn, right? I served some fantastic clients. I still have some very, very close friends from Chicago. Again, another theme I would like to leave in this podcast is make friends all through life. I think the sum of your friends is the sum of your life, right? So make some friends, build a community and stay in touch, right? So
how do you stay in touch? That's a big one.
So actually, again, look, make a list of your top 20 people, right, in your life, outside of your family.
Okay.
And if those top 20 people you're not calling once a month, they're not your top 20.
Once a month?
Yeah.
I like this framework.
It's very simple. They're not your top 20 if you don't call them once a month. No? Forget, once a quarter, you don't call them. Then they're not in your top 20. Right? And 20 is a golden number for me. I mean, more than 20 becomes very hard. Less than 20 is too few.
Yeah.
So it's a good number.
That's a good framework.
Yeah.
And what was the projects like in these 5 years? Like
So,
what kind of work?
Mostly product development. So, which has actually stood me in, I mean, it's been very useful for me at brand.me today, right? There was a practice in McKinsey called design to value, DTV. Design to value is how do you develop products that consumers love at the right cost?
Okay.
So, how do you decide what is the right quality of a product that a customer will pay for? And how do you decide how to design the product most efficiently and source it most efficiently? So, I did lots and lots of work, mostly with industrial companies, but I did lots of work with industrial companies and how can they make better products. So,
how do you do that?
Better. So, first is deep understanding of consumer. So, you go talk to lots and lots of consumers. You can do quantitative, qualitative surveys, etc. The second is what's called product teardowns, which we still do here. Product teardowns is you take products, competitors, yours, etc., tear it down into component pieces and build up the cost and say, how do you actually build this? Okay. Right? You know, you can take
reverse engineering.
Right? So you basically think about what are the components, what's the material, what's the weight of the product, how do you put it together, what's the amount of R&D that you need to build the product, etc., and build up what's called a clean sheet cost, right? Again, seems very old-fashioned, but actually applies just as well to consumer brands. It's very first principles thinking, right? But that's been very useful. Even today, we do lots and lots of product sessions at brand.me. When we do product sessions at brand.me, I come in with the mindset of tell me what the consumers are thinking and tell me the cost breakdown of the product. And it gives you an immediate sense on whether the team has actually gone deep and if so, how deep, right? If they're basically saying, I don't know, here is the price per kg of peanuts and this is the quality of the peanuts for my peanut butter brand, then you know that it's in good shape, right? If they're saying, no, I mean, here is the cost of the jar, here's the cost of the peanut butter, this is what the supplier gave me, you're not deep enough. So how do you go deep into product is very, very important. I think it's the core of building great products which I think Brand India and Brand.me both need to do more of as we build global consumer brands.
This sounds like very intense in terms of, like, I don't think Indian brands do so much research, deep dive into consumer surveys. Like,
Yes.
surveys only I learned probably when I started the company. Ki karna chahiye. Because brands would come to us and be like, do like surveys for us and all that.
So Ayush, I think the thing that is interesting now is surveys are much easier, and you get a lot of quantitative information from all the platforms about what your consumers behave, how they behave, right? How many of you look at the product, how many of you click on a product, how many of you, your reviews and ratings are a great source of insight.
Correct.
Right? You actually, very, very, very few people analyze your reviews and ratings. We have a tech tool that analyzes it, and I think that makes it fascinating, right? Because you're suddenly putting science to an art, and I think there's a lot of science. I think eventually, look, it's science plus art in terms of getting great products, but the science makes sure that you don't make very large mistakes.
So data plus gut feeling makes
Data plus gut. It's always about data plus gut, but I think the data part many people ignore or take a shortcut, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Before we move forward in the Chicago journey, because you mentioned peanut butter brand and brand.me, I want like a one quick case study on this DTV thing only when it comes any brand of yours. Like you can mention MyFitness or whatever. Wherein you use this strategy and how it helped you come to a...
So MyFitness is a good example, right? So MyFitness is our peanut butter brand. We're sort of saying health ka tasty partner is the way we think about the brand. So we basically sort of think through what is the shape of the jar, what should be the weight of the jar, how should you actually think about what stands out in a shelf. So we would go to every shelf, take photos, and say, how will the jar stand out in a large shelf in a retail store, right? So packaging, you can actually get really, really, really good at. If you look at the packaging, it's quite distinct. I mean, we just introduced a Zero, which is a very clean version of peanut butter, but it's a black jar. It really stands out. So being able to sort of start, so you start with packaging, then we get into a lot of product. In product, today is not one of those days, but every second Saturday, there are people here in the office who actually we do blind tests. So in the case of peanut butter, you would do blind tasting across 5-6 different peanut butters. You will taste each of the peanut butters and you give a rating, right? We don't know which one is MyFitness, which one is X, which one is Y.
Of course. Yeah.
And then that gives you lots of feedback, right? Whenever we launch a new product, we don't rush into it. We take lots of time. I think one of the things in product development is, it varies by category, of course, but in the case of food in particular, it is important to go deep. It's important to get the product recipe right. So I'll give you an interesting example. In MyFitness, our TG is basically a lot of fitness enthusiasts, right? These are people who basically don't take the peanut and spread it over butter. They take the peanut and eat it. So the oil separation on top actually makes a big deterrent to actually. So our oil, there's no oil separation in MyFitness, right? The reason is the emulsifier is made with a proprietary formula, right? So there's no oil separation. There's still separation, but you can't see it. But the interesting consumer insight is, for our TG, that's a huge differentiator. It may not be for somebody who spreads the peanut butter on bread, but it is for us.
Right.
So understanding that and converting it into a product feature seems very easy, but it's very, very, very complicated.
Even to get into this insight, that this is the
it takes a lot of effort, right?
Yeah.
So we do that across every brand. And I think that makes a huge difference to product. And I think that's the source of, it's at least 1/3 of the battle. And we can talk about brand building and supply chain and all that. But 1/3 of it is basically getting the product right. And when I say getting the product right, it's the feature functionality at the right price point for the consumer. People often ask, what is the right quality? It's the quality that consumers will pay for. So you have to understand a little bit of what they're willing to pay for, and therefore then design around that and say, how can I exceed expectations?
Fair. Yeah. Got it. So we are at 2009, 2010 now, after Chicago's 5 years?
Yeah, 2009, 2010, and then I decided to come back to India. And there was an opportunity to start a McKinsey office in Chennai.
Yeah.
So along with a couple of other colleagues, two from Bombay and I came from Chicago, we started the McKinsey office in Chennai. That was again a fascinating place, right? Because you are being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's like a 0 to 1 journey.
0 to 1 journey. Entrepreneur inside a large organization,
100%.
of course. But you're still an entrepreneur, right? You have to go find an office.
Yeah.
You have to find clients. You have to build people, right?
Literally. Yeah.
It was fabulous, right? So I was there for 4 years. I left in end of 2014. I got elected senior partner when I was in Chennai. That was also another big deal. So I got elected senior partner in 2013 and left 1 year later. But it was a fascinating journey. It sort of taught me a little bit about how to be a real entrepreneur with a P&L ownership, inside a larger organization. And it was a great team of people. The other lesson learned at some level there was, whenever you do something difficult, do it with people that you truly enjoy being around. Because the journey actually makes it very interesting, right? I mean, we're still very good friends. I think whenever I go back to Chennai, the old McKinsey Chennai gang always ends up getting together and actually, we
You're
go
a full
out for a
people
drink.
person then.
I am. I like people.
Same. I love it.
Yeah. And I think that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. So I did that. We can get to why I left McKinsey. It was completely by chance. I'd met Sachin, Binny and Mukesh. And it felt like they were great people. Again, going back to the people thing. And it was an interesting problem. I'd missed the IT services. I'd missed telecom. Felt like e-commerce was actually going to take off.
Correct.
So, and in e-commerce, see, I'm again a big picture guy, right? If you think about macro trends, India actually had very, very little organized shopping, right? Organized retail. Second, internet penetration was exploding. Data cost was coming down.
Yeah. This is just pre-Geo times.
Just pre-Geo, but even then it was exploding. You could see the curve happening. Third is, Myntra in particular, I felt like fashion was a high gross margin category. So you have to start every time with gross margins. When you have high gross margins, you can do anything.
High gross margin and high TAM.
High gross margin, high TAM.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of basic sort of insight. And then I said, look, good people, these 3-4 things, what's the worst that can happen? I'll try it.
Got it.
And it turned out to be one of the better decisions I made.
I'll come to the Myntra thing, but 2010 to 2014, take us to the journey of that founder, entrepreneur within McKinsey, what all kind of things you did.
So the first is, look, McKinsey is a very client-oriented company, right? You need clients. So...
you literally did sales, get first client in Chennai?
Yeah, of course. McKinsey doesn't call it sales, but you basically go and you have to make sure that you develop a client. And the client development is very hard. Right? Most people have never heard of McKinsey, and then McKinsey is very expensive. So you have to sort of say, how do you actually show value? Right? And the key there is actually in client development is how can the value that you add be 10 times the fees, right? If you do that, then I think most people are okay. Most businessmen sort of make that decision that way, right?
True.
And that's what we did. That's one. The second is, I think, not being transactional with client relationships. Sometimes saying no to a client engagement is the right answer. Sometimes clients should do their own thing. So I have still some of my closest friends from my McKinsey client days who are still in touch with me. And that was fascinating because I actually never treated them like a client. I sort of thought of them as an extended part of what I do. And I always thought of myself as somebody who's in their organization trying to see if the organization can get better. And that worked well. So, if you will, a lesson learned is not being transactional, right, with relationships. Now, I'm not talking about personal relationships. I'm talking about professional relationships. Being non-transactional about professional relationships was one big lesson learned from the Chennai experience. The second big lesson was, I think you have to go knock on many doors. I think as an entrepreneur, you get more no's than yeses. And
always,
you have to learn to just sort of keep doing it. You just have to be at it and something cracks. Right? Which is what we did. I think it wasn't just me. I think it was a great team of people who sort of came together and we really made some things happen. And it was magical, right? I think suddenly the Chennai office of McKinsey sort of became a reasonably large office. We were touted to be one of the offices across the globe that was among the fastest growing. I got elected senior partner on the basis of the success of the McKinsey Chennai office.
So what was your modus operandi of reaching out to clients? What would you do?
So what I would normally do is figure out and understand a little bit about them. So there was no ChatGPT at that time. So you have to go through the balance sheet in a reasonable level of detail and figure out what are some interesting problems, right? The second is, I think, picking topics. So I was always passionate about product development. And so we set up a design to value lab in Chennai. We set up a tear down center in Chennai where people would come in and tear things down. Like products down. You could tear a tractor down, a car down, a phone down, anything, right? And sort of create interesting insights from it.
Wow.
And so I would invite clients to come and spend a day with us. Not for a McKinsey engagement, but come and spend a day, right? And that led to a lot of... the best way in McKinsey client development is to co-create a problem statement that you can jointly work on and add value, as opposed to trying to sell, right? I think selling your service is a very unidirectional way. co-creating a problem statement is the best way to actually do client development. And I think that's what a lot of McKinsey does. I'm sure other consulting firms as well. I don't know them as well. But I'm saying it is fascinating to be able to do that. And I think that's an important skill. And that's a good skill that even for an entrepreneur. Right? You think about problem solving and people as the two things you take away from McKinsey, right?
Yeah.
That applies everywhere.
Yeah, it's like you're an extension of their team. It's not like you're partners, so you're working on the same problem statement rather than being like, we'll sell you this product.
Correct. Correct. And that's approach to problem solving of co-creating a problem actually is applicable in an entrepreneur's life.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
I think entrepreneurship is all about that.
Is all about that. And I think that was very, very good training. Yeah. Very, very good. I'm enormously grateful for the experiences at McKinsey, right? I mean, I think it shaped a lot of how I look at my professional life. Reputation matters, being long-term matters, people relationships matter. I think these are all life lessons, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask you in the beginning of the podcast, why are consultants so famous and why does everybody want to, become consultant? Because there's right now, I'm not sure if you know about it, but there's a thing going on with GPT. We don't need consultants anymore and all that.
Yes.
But in the 40-minute conversation that you had, it's very clear for the first time, to be honest, that I now know properly what is it that consultants do and why. Is like the training itself is so rigorous. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Apne bola hai, but like learning this, and now those 12 hours make sense. Why they have to deep dive into different kind of industries, different projects. That's why they know so much about so many different
I would say, look, the three things that I think will chat GPT and generative AI change consulting, I think the answer is yes. Right? Every consulting firm is developing their own model.
Yeah.
I'm sure McKinsey is, BCG, Bain, everybody will, right? So I don't think that's a problem. What I think is you don't take away is this joint problem definition, which is a skill. Right? So what the consulting firm is might change, but whether external advice and pattern recognition is useful, I think the answer will be yes. It'll change what we do, but I don't think it'll change consulting.
Correct.
Right? I think consultants may still be needed.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is, look, people eventually, especially partners and senior partners, clients want you for your judgment, not for the analysis.
Correct.
Right? You've seen lots of pattern. And they want to problem solve with you on making a decision and how do you make a judgment call. And I think that's an important skill.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
I think GPT across sectors, not just in consulting, will only fasten things up.
I think so.
What would take 2 months would now take maybe 2
That's
weeks.
That's right. And I think that may be great, right? Because you then spend more time on value-added things.
Correct.
And less time on analysis.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Fair. Okay. Now we'll go to the Myntra story. How did you meet the Bansals, and then what did you like about them?
Look, I've spoken about this before as well, but it happened by chance.
Yeah.
I met them at an award function, and then I met them also, with one of my ex-colleagues had joined Flipkart, and so that's how it all happened. I personally wasn't looking for a change. I just made senior partner. And senior partner, you generally don't leave because you work very hard to sort of get there.
You're sorted for life.
Why would you leave, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I left was what I spoke about earlier, which is I thought there was a macro opportunity in e-commerce and in fashion. You could make money and be large. Second, great set of people. I thought Sachin, very good with vision, big picture thinking.
Correct.
Benny, very, very good with operations, supply chain thinking.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Mukesh, a lot around product. And tech, and saying how do product and tech make a difference to the company. I felt like I learned an enormous amount from Sachin, Benny and Mukesh. Right? Just, I was new to the startup world, and what better way to sort of get into the startup world than spending time with these three, right? So it was quite lucky. That's the other thing. Entrepreneurship is a lot about luck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I got very lucky with this. So really loved what I think Myntra was doing, and Myntra sort of from, I would say 2014 and 2015 beginning to 2018 sort of grew massively, right? Grew 5-6 times the size, got to be a lot more profitable. Sort of went from a place where people were wondering whether fashion would be bought offline. Whether fashion would be bought online, because most fashion was bought offline at that point of time. To basically saying now it's mainstream, right? I mean, nobody talks about whether fashion should be bought online anymore.
Correct.
That was a massive question in 2015. You don't realize it, but it's now become sort of the largest category by volume in e-commerce. Right? If you think about number of units as opposed to GMV, fashion will be very large. And I think Myntra drove a lot of the change. Outstanding team and culture. So I go back a little bit to, what I think the McKinsey journey helped me a little bit was how do you make sure that you have a great team, a great culture, and then you have a large vision of what you want to do. You get these three ingredients, then magic happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Extremely difficult to do though.
Extremely difficult to do. And I think, the other ingredient is capital, which you need. Right?
Yeah.
So if you think about sort of vision, people, capital, and those three coming together, I felt like was just lucky. I think Myntra sort of went through all three of them coming together at that point of time.
So even before Myntra, I want to understand like what is your personal decision-making framework? Like it sounds like it's not that money that drives you as much as the interest in people is what drives you. Like,
I would say, I haven't thought about it actually. It's an interesting question. First, I would say is people, because I do believe that every day matters. And, you have to surround yourself with good people, right? The second is, whenever I do something, the question is, can you create something large? Not from a monetary outcome for myself, but can the business be large? Because look, you work very hard. That's a given, right? You go through stress. That's a given. At the end of it, at least you get to a large outcome in terms of a company, right? Yeah. So can you actually build something large? So don't pick small spaces. When you think about compounding over 10 years, can you think of something that you can build a large business around, right? So that's the second. Not personally, but can you build a large business? Can the business be lasting, right? That's the second framework. The third, I would say is start. I know it's sort of going from very visionary to very tactical, but I would say start with high gross margins. It seems very obvious, but people don't.
Yeah.
If you start with high gross margins, you can build scale. If you don't start with high gross margins, it's very difficult. If you can't eventually make money in a business, what are you there for?
Yeah.
Right? And I think therefore starting with high gross margins has been the other big framework. And that was the framework I used. I liked the people. I felt like you would build a large business, high gross margin. Right? Everything else was details. And sometimes you need to get lucky as well.
Yeah. So. I think that quote, I love that quote, that winning the right battle is more important than winning any random battle.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It goes back to the same thing.
Exactly.
And what is it that you needed to unlearn or you unlearned from moving from McKinsey?
I think many things. But if I were to summarize, the first is non-fact-based decision making.
What does that mean?
You don't have time to analyze every problem that comes at you.
Okay.
One part of operating. So just think about the context. In McKinsey, you solve complicated large problems which occur infrequently. When you're operating a company, you actually make decisions, maybe 3, 5, 8 decisions a day. There's big to small decisions, but you have to make them quickly, right? So how do you develop an instinct where you get 2/3 of your decisions right? One third will be wrong, but you make high velocity decisions. So that was one big thing. The second is McKinsey doesn't teach you about motivating large groups of people. McKinsey teams by definition are small. And second is they're hugely self-motivated.
Yeah. Right?
The classic term that gets used is insecure overachievers. So you don't have to tell anybody twice what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Once you tell somebody, I think the question is how quickly will they get there, right?
Correct.
That's very different in a large organization. When I started with Myntra, I think Myntra was maybe 1,700 people, maybe 2,000. And sort of became much larger when I left. But how do you sort of motivate a large group of people? How do you create a culture and a vision that unifies a large group of people so that there is meaning, right? Because your ability to convey one-on-one goes down in large companies. So how do you simplify your messaging so that people believe in the overall story and a vision, and sort of everybody sort of then runs in the same direction because they believe in it?
Solid point, yeah.
Right? So that was the second thing, I think, as you go from sort of a consulting background to an operating background. The third is P&L management. Look, it's hard to deliver a number quarter on quarter on quarter. You run a business. You see it. It's very hard. And I think that requires a certain skill. It requires how do you set expectations with your board? It requires how do you have enough pockets up your sleeves so that you when something falls, something else comes in so that you're still making progress. month on month, quarter on quarter.
The Chennai experience must have helped.
Chennai experience helps, right? So I think that is the other thing, right? So these are the three things that I thought were very different. And look, I love operating. I should have sort of left consulting maybe 5 years sooner or 8 years sooner, but hindsight's 2020. But Myntra for me was a game changer, right? It just taught me that you can build large businesses in India. You can build a brand in India. Myntra has become a real brand, right? I mean, third is the power of technology, right? I was always sort of looking at tech from the outside. Never experienced the power of tech directly. I would argue that the consumer shopping experience. So again, a bit of gyan, but fashion is a browse category, not a search category, right? You browse things.
Don't get
right? So how do you actually get people to browse more using technology? How do you use technology in demand forecasting? How do you use technology in supply chain management? How do you use technology in picking the right assortment? All of that was very integral to the success of Myntra. And I think I'm a big believer in, and one of the big things I've done at brand.me is I think technology, AI now, but just generally technology is a huge differentiator in and an equalizer. You can compete with the best globally now because of technology. That's the other big belief that I got into. Right?
I want to ask you, how did you get into technology? But before that, you mentioned that motivational point. How did you do that? Like, what are the actionable steps that you follow to, speak to 2,000, 3,000 people?
Yeah, more at one point. But the first is spend some deep time thinking about what is the vision. Seems very simple, but it's not, right? What are you really trying to build? It's not about revenue. It's not about profits. It's not about being number one, number two. But what are you really trying to achieve, vision, right? What is this, right? The second is people don't remember facts, Ayush. People remember stories, right? It's human brain is not wired for facts. The human brain is wired for stories. So how do you actually tell stories that stick with people, right? Is the second piece. The third is, I think, figuring out repetition. I must have talked about, brand.me's vision of building global consumer brands till my voice got hoarse, right? You have to keep repeating it. And the reason you need to keep repeating is we live in a distracting world, right? The message coming at you again and again and again, I think really is important, right? And I think, so these are the three things, right? And it compounds.
You mentioned the vision of brand.me. What's the story that you tell your team members internally, if you can share that?
So I'll give you an example, right? We have a brand called Party Props, right? Party Props is the largest party celebration business in India. It's sort of maybe the second or third largest in the US. And in the UK, maybe the fifth, etc. Right? So we've sort of built it globally. Now, we can have two ways of thinking about this Party Props as a business. You can think you're selling balloons and streamers, or you can think about making every celebration magical. Right? So the stories we talk about in Party Props is which child's life was brightened up because you made that celebration magical. Let's get stories about how it's actually made a difference, right? We are now 80% or whatever, some large market share, shall we say, in quick commerce. You can either say, it's a business, I have to get to X% in quick commerce. Or you can basically say, look, X million kids or celebrations got their celebrations on time and it made their day because we are available in all these pin codes in quick commerce. So it's about reframing it so that it actually appeals to emotion.
Very good point.
Right? 100%. You have to appeal to the heart, right? Because I think the brain is overloaded.
It's not a number, it's the emotion behind it.
It's the emotion behind it. And I think that's made a big difference. And I think the way we talk about it is how every brand is making some difference.
I think it also makes the people feel that we're not doing it for a money thing or a number thing. Because people get really burnt out by repeatedly thinking about the same thing. Oh, you have to go 20% EBITDA, this, that, yada. But this is like meaning behind the work that you're putting.
That's right. It doesn't mean that you don't focus on numbers. It doesn't mean, by the way, that you don't push on numbers. Of course we do. I mean, you're a business, you've taken venture capital money, you need returns, right? But I think what is the best way to motivate people? The best way to motivate people is to say their work every day, their hard work every day has meaning. And how do you get to that meaning, right? It is around storytelling. It is around saying how does the work that they do really impact the life of a consumer in a positive way. If you can make that connection and if you repeat it enough times so that it sticks, magic starts to happen.
Right. Yeah. All right. Now coming back to technology and Myntra 2015, 2018.
Yeah.
How has D2C e-commerce evolved in the last 1 decade? I remember I was watching one of your conversations and you mentioned that back in 2015 you realized, okay, the next decade is about all this. We're in 2025 right now. I think it still is like going on, e-commerce still going on.
Yeah. So first, I think consumer journeys have become shorter. I think more people who come online transact.
By faster, yeah.
Faster. I think that's one. Second, I do think Indian consumers now, there are many different Indias. I think there is an India which is a Singapore, there is an India which is a Mexico, etc. Right? So I think how do you be more specific about which consumer segment you're going after? And then going back to design to value, design your products for that consumer segment. I think that's going to be important, right? And I think it's critical because a little bit of what you have to do is average is the killer. You don't want to be average. You want to be really good at something for one segment. You don't want to be average across all segments. Okay. Right? And it's actually not so easy to do, right? So you have to pick the segment and then you have to build for that segment. Right? So that's the second, I think that is really important.
Right now, like in 2025 or like?
I think so. I think that's more in 2025. I think the averages were easier to do. In 2015, if you were average, you were fine because you were at the forefront.
Yeah,
now you have to be a lot more competition. You have to be a lot more personalized and you have to be clear about the segment.
Fair.
I think the third thing that I think has changed for me is I genuinely, fundamentally believe you can build global consumer brands from India. I didn't think we would do that 10 years ago. If you asked me, I would say, look, it was all about just India, just build for India, etc. Now I'm like reasonably convinced because distribution is democratic, data is available. India has great design, sensibility, aesthetics and manufacturing capability. So could you actually build global brands? And I think that belief has changed for me. So D2C and building global is another big change that I've sort of gone through in the last 10 years. So consumer journey is becoming faster, more segment-oriented, design to value consumer products that are designed.
Fair.
Third, build from India for the world.
Okay.
These are the three changes.
So first 2 points I understand. Segmentation and fragmentation is basically because there's so much competition.
There's a lot more competition.
Yeah, go deeper into one audience segment and target them. Like if you're targeting Mexico, build for that Mexico.
That's right.
If you're building for the Singapore of India, build for them and don't like get diverted and all of that. India to the world, like if you can go deeper into that, why do you feel so?
Why is India for the world an opportunity now? So you think about it, you take a 20-year view. What has India exported? India has exported IT services, Wipro, Infosys, TCS. Second is a lot of pharma, right?
Pharma.
Yeah, we do lots of generic drugs. Third is auto. We're one of the largest exporters of auto components, right? I was involved in the first auto component report of auto going global. Why have these worked? There's a manufacturing cost arbitrage and they're mostly B2B transactions. They're not B2C. Right? What has changed now? First, logistics and e-commerce platforms have become more global. Look, Amazon allows for global selling.
Correct.
Many platforms are now going global. You now have FedEx and DHL that will allow for single parcel delivery across the world, right? So logistics and supply chains have shrunk. So you are able to sort of get it to different places.
Right.
If you were a Dabur or a X or an Aditya Birla, whatever, right? I think if you wanted to go to a different country, usually you had to set up an office, you had to set up a distribution hub, you had to find a distributor and sort of go that way. Now you can go direct to consumer, either through D2C or through a marketplace, right? That's different. The second is consumer, being close to the consumer meant you had to be geographically close to the consumer, right? Otherwise you couldn't get a feel for a consumer.
Sure.
That has changed with data. Instagram is a global platform. Amazon is a global platform. Shein is a global platform. TikTok is a global platform. Our ability to understand consumers with data has gone up dramatically. You can sit in India and understand what is a consumer really looking for in the Midwest using a bunch of tools on an Amazon or an X or a Y, right? That's the second thing that's changed. The third thing I would say is, look, brand India is coming into its own. I feel like, we never thought of, Japan and Korea went through the journey, right? And you can see Korea now going through the consumer product journey. I think the inflection point for India is coming, right? I think we may be at the start of that journey. I think the next 10, 15, 20 years, brand India will actually go global. And I think consumer products will be one large way in which brand India goes global. Right? So just to summarize, why is this an opportunity now? Distribution, much easier globally without a large capital investment. Second, availability of consumer data and analytics allow you to understand a consumer in a different geography minutely, which you could not do. Third, there is an abundance of manufacturing capability and sourcing capability, but we've never built brands, right? And therefore, if you have an entrepreneur with ambition, can you not change that? I'll give you an example. One of our brands is Majestic Pure. Majestic Pure is an aromatherapy brand. Aromatherapy means essential oils, body oils, massage oils, reed diffusers. Massive market globally, right? The big ones are companies like doTERRA and Young Living, which are all $1.5 billion companies, mostly America-based. Everybody buys from India, right? They buy essential oils from India. They buy in bulk. They package it elsewhere. And all the value creation happens outside. Why do you need to do that? Why can't we create a brand? So we are creating Majestic Pure from India for the world, building on aromatherapy, right? It's already happening. I'm saying, why can't we own the brand and the value creation?
Fair.
And sort of own the end consumer. And I think that's possible now. I don't think it was possible 10 years ago. In 2015, I think it was less likely. In 2025, I think the next 10 years we can do something massive.
I think my experience of being in US, and I was in London also a couple of years ago, is that they are extremely good at positioning themselves. The soft skills question that I also asked you, US specific, they're so much better than us compared to, like an average. Like I would say that 5 years ago, I would be much worse than I am today when it comes to selling myself or talking about myself. I don't think I'm still good, but like going to the US, I just feel like, how are you doing? Like the confidence that they have, like there might be an Indian guy doing it in the behind, but they're the ones selling it.
Correct.
I think that is something, a soft skill we need to learn as well.
I agree. I think marketing
Marketing and branding.
Marketing and branding. Marketing is a skill, right? I think America, has perfected marketing as a skill. I think India is starting to. I think we can. Why is it that our brands can't be global consumer brands? Right? You just think about it. How many global consumer brands are there from India? Very few, right? The big conglomerates have created it. I mean, Tata Tea, of course, is large, right? And many of these are but they're all acquisitions from outside, right? Tata Motors with Jaguar Land Rover is, of course, there, right? But I'm saying, how many consumer brands have we created globally? And why shouldn't we? We have 1.4 billion population. We have great manufacturing capability. We have great design capability, right? We have lots of capital. Why can't we create global consumer brands? Right? And that's what I want to change. I think with brand.me, if we can create 4 great consumer brands which become global names. It can be in niche spaces. It can be in aromatherapy. It can be in party celebration. Doesn't matter. But can we actually create in health and wellness and lifestyle 4 large consumer brands? I think we can. And I think it's the start of something, right? You think about it. IT services was a bet. Why did IT services work? You had lower cost engineering talent. You had almost no restrictions from the government. Right? At that time, remember, there was a lot of licensing. You didn't need any licensing or very minimal licensing. And then people were able to get capital and build out global businesses.
Correct.
I think the same thing will happen with global consumer brands. And I think what we are trying to do at brand.me is sort of, can we be at the forefront of that? Can we be the first to build 4-5 brands? There'll be many others, I'm sure. But can we build 4-5 1,000 crore brands out of India? I think it's very possible.
So brand.me focus right now is completely, we will do everything based in India, like build in India for the globe.
Yes, I think we will also sell in India. I think India is a large market. So look, half our revenue comes from here, half our revenue comes from outside. And India is a great market because in India, if you succeed, you can certainly succeed anywhere else. It's a more competitive market than many other places. So I don't think it'll only be for the globe. But certainly, by the way, we should build from India for the world.
Like even talking about companies like a Lululemon for that matter, or Alo Yoga, like a New Balance, these are like, what do these companies have that we don't have?
Correct. And why should, by the way, yoga, a brand based on yoga, not come from India?
I mean, I think it's LA-based company. Lululemon is Canada-based.
That's right.
And they're exporting an Indian concept via US to the whole world. And
that's right. And I think we can, right? I'm just saying, Majestic Pure, that's what we're trying to do. Why can't we build aromatherapy? Why can't we build from India? Why can't we have Ayurveda elements? Why can't we build a large wellness brand, health and wellness brand globally? I mean, India, and I think India's moment in the sun is also coming through. That's why I was saying, I think they're sort of correlated with brand India. I think yoga is becoming global, Ayurveda is becoming global. I think there is a chance to build and seize on the cultural moment. You said marketing, right?
Yeah.
Marketing is again storytelling.
Yeah.
Storytelling, there has to be stories that resonate with the zeitgeist of the moment, if you will, right? So how do you actually make that happen?
What do you think is the capability that we Indians need to develop to achieve this? Like, I'll give another example before this. Like, I keep talking about it because it really irritates me is that I went to Lord's Cricket's ground and I was like, home of cricket.
Yeah.
Everything home of cricket. Why home of cricket?
Yeah.
It's just that brand recall consistently
Correct,
that they've said it's the
correct.
home of cricket, it's the home of cricket, it's the home of cricket. And now everybody wants to play in Lord's.
So I'll tell you, the first thing is to treat marketing importantly. There is a mindset that if you build a great product, that's all is needed. I think the first thing is storytelling and marketing. I told you product is 1/3.
Yeah.
Storytelling and marketing is 1/3. Operations and supply chain is 1/3.
Got it.
Right? That's the 1/3. So first is, I think the mindset has to be, I have to tell a story. I have to be able to market. I have to be able to resonate with the audience. And I have to repeat it enough times. And it's a real thing. It is not fluff. Marketing is not fluff. I think that's the one mindset to change.
Got it.
Right? Second, I think is simplicity. We complicate things. Right? Our messaging is complex. How do you simplify it so that in 20 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds, your brand is clear? Right? Making celebrations magical is simple, but it took a lot of time to come up with that, right? For our party props brand. Health ka tasty partner for MyFitness seems very simple, but actually takes a lot of time. Does health come first or taste come first? Why is it a partner? I mean, these seem very simple, right? But how do you simplify messaging such that you get the message in 10 seconds is a skill. First, treat marketing as an important, real capability. It's 1/3 of brand building.
Right.
Second, simplify your messaging. Third, I think that is changing and I think we are getting very good at it, is how do you do low-cost marketing? So marketing used to be the loudest marketeer. The maximum number of impressions, the maximum number of repeats, the maximum number of frequency and reach would win. I think the consumer, given the advent of social media, is fatigued with advertising. Fatigued.
Yeah.
Right? I think nobody believes in advertising as much anymore, right? Because if it's an advertisement coming at you, by definition, it's not authentic. By definition, somebody's paid for it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So how do you create communities? How do you create genuine communities of user-generated content? How do you get micro-influencers to work? I think is actually not something anybody has cracked. Brand.me is also working on it, but I don't think we've cracked it. So how do you develop that as a real capability? And now if you throw in Gen AI into the mix, it's fascinating. Again, like technology leveled the playing field for e-commerce, I think Gen AI will level the playing field for marketing. Right? And I think that's quite fascinating. In the next 10 years, Gen AI
How exactly
will level. See, look, the ability to create content, the cost of creating content.
It's extremely low now.
It's extremely low now, right? The other thing that I think has changed is because you're able to measure the effectiveness of marketing because it's more digital.
Correct.
Your ability to get ROI is much higher.
Yeah.
Right? Therefore, now a small player can compete with a large player on the quality of the content, and the per unit cost is low enough that you can experiment. And if it's working, you can double down, triple down, quadruple down, right? I think it's fascinating for younger, smaller brands to be able to punch above their weight in terms of marketing. And I think that's a change.
And in terms of, if I ask you the same question, but for a person, like what is it the capability that person like a 25-year-old needs to develop rather than, you answered for a company very beautifully, like what about a person? What do we need to develop?
Just like I said, marketing is important. For a person, reputation is important. Right? The equivalent of marketing for an individual is reputation. So treat your reputation seriously. Write down simply what your reputation is going to be.
Why so? Like because I've read this about you a lot. You have mentioned reputation a lot. Like you mentioned money and reputation are the two things that compounds.
Yeah.
Like what's the...
Yeah. No, it goes back a little bit to my belief that networks of people are necessary to succeed. Right? You need a network of people to succeed. When you think about networks, every node in the network is known for something. The question is, what is it that you're known for becomes your reputation. And that stays with you for long, long, long periods of time. Right? You can both the good and the bad, right? Both stay with you for long periods of time. So the question is, how do you build out a reputation? That doesn't mean, by the way, you don't negotiate hard. It doesn't mean, by the way, you do what's right for your business, etc. But do it with grace, right? It's often forgotten, but do it with grace, right? Do it nicely. I tell everybody that when you join in a company and when you leave a company are the 2 points that actually matter from a reputation of the company standpoint. How you are interviewed and how you are exited. Both matter. And actually very few people pay attention to it because people again don't remember the middle.
Yeah.
People remember only points of time, right? I remember how nice my McKinsey farewell was. Do I remember all the hours that I worked and all the difficult engagements that I did? Actually, not really. But what you remember is, oh, it was done so well, right? So I think reputation therefore matters, right? And that's why I think it's important. And I don't think young people focus enough on it. I actually think a 25-year-old has 25 years of compounding of the reputation. 50 years of compounding, actually, with the longevity. 50 years of compounding of your reputation. If you think about it that way, and you say, look, I want to put, 1 lakh rupees in savings when I'm 25, and I see it compound at whatever, call it 16% year on year for the next 50 years. It's a large thing.
Yeah.
If you think about what is the reputation you want to stand for, how many people actually write down what their reputation should be? Is your reputation a hard negotiator? Is your reputation a fair negotiator? Is your reputation somebody who's transactional? Is your reputation somebody who sort of believes in long-term relationships?
Brand me. What
brand
does
me?
Brand me stand for?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, so what does brand.me stand for, right? That's important, right? And I think very few people think about it. And if you don't think about it, you don't do it deliberately. And if you don't do it deliberately, it sort of develops. And sometimes it develops well, but then it's a matter of chance. Here, can you actually think about how do you do it deliberately? It takes effort, and it takes some short-term sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Right, and I think it's very important for a 25-year-old to think about their reputation.
What mistake do you think a 25-year-old is making when it comes to reputation?
First is I think people are very transactional,
running after money, like before thinking about anything else.
Yeah, immediate gratification. The number of people changing jobs, for example, right, every 2 years. Look, you don't learn and contribute unless you're there for 4 years, 6 years in a company, even in a fast-paced company, right? You cannot make a difference unless you're there for 4, 5, 6 years. Most people keep rotating too fast. Why? Because you want to get the next hike.
Yeah.
You want to get the next opportunity.
Compounding the wrong thing.
You're compounding the wrong thing. I think if you take a lifetime value of earnings, right, and do this math, I don't think anybody has done the research, but it'll be interesting to see. Yeah. People who sort of change jobs multiple times, do they actually get ahead? If you take a sample size of 1,000, my hypothesis would be people who have been around for a longer period of time will actually compound more. Is my hypothesis. I haven't looked at the data, but it will be a fascinating study for someone like a McKinsey to do. Potentially they hear this podcast and do it. But I'm saying, look, it's important, and I think if you were to take one thing away, don't optimize on the short term, optimize for the long term. And optimizing for the long term means giving up some opportunity in the short term, which is very hard. We are risk averse people, right? The immediate hike is always more important than basically saying, I will learn more in 2 years from now. It's an esoteric concept.
Correct.
But if you actually sort of showed data, I suspect that it would show a very different picture.
Got it. Okay, very fair point. First point is the reputation. Anything else? Capability development that an individual needs to do?
I think Indians in general don't market themselves well.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think the reason is maybe the mindset, but also it's a skill. How do you be concise? How do you sort of figure out what you stand for? Yeah. And then how do you repeat it enough times?
Yeah.
So the same principles sort of apply.
Yeah. No, I think that's what I mentioned. Like, when do US, when do UK realize that, we are so bad at marketing ourselves? Like, even if we feel we can do it better, we'll be like, it's fine.
No, it's fine. Everybody, why should you go talk about yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
And Americans specifically, I feel they are very good at it.
Yes.
I have a brand that we work with in the US. And even in the conversation, it's so like, usually that client call in India would be 30 minutes. I had a 3-minute call with this guy from New York. He said, what is it that you want? I said this. He said done, and then it was done. It was like a 3-minute call, very direct. He told me what he wants. I told him what I can give him, and that was closed.
Yeah.
And in India, because of that lack of confidence, you would tell a story, you would take 10 minutes.
Correct.
All of that will happen, and then people usually see through it. Like at least the position in power.
Yeah. And maybe the second thing I would say for 25-year-olds is return on invested time. So first is brand, right? Reputation equals brand. Second is how do you use your time? I think people are inefficient with time on average, right? So can you get more efficient with time? Sort of figure out, I'm not saying by the way work all the time. I'm saying you have X number of hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Where do you invest that time?
Where do you invest that time?
To evolve faster. What's
Can
your
you be
framework?
deliberate about it? So I, for example, at the end of every month, look at the time I've actually spent. So have I spent it on the times that are things that are important? Have I spent it on the times that are urgent?
Like you look at your calendar.
I look at my calendar. So I basically do a pie chart of how I spend my time. How much time do I spend at home? How much time do I spend on myself? How much time do I spend on work? On work, do I spend time more on...
Nice.
No, it's important, right? All three are important. Every one of them is a pillar. And then the interesting thing is in work, I found, for example, I'm deviating a lot more to urgent issues, not discussing the important issues. So then I sort of deliberately change what I do. One of the things we talk about at brand.me is how can we spend more time on what we call deep work, which is you can carve out an hour or two for yourself.
Yeah.
You're not solving a problem which is for this quarter. You're solving a problem that is for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later. But how do you carve out deep work time? I think is important and we don't do enough of it. So return on invested time.
I think if I look at my calendar like this, even I would be moving more towards the urgent thing and not focusing on that 6 months, 4 month thing. आज कुछ आ गया चलो ठीक है इसी में 3-4 घंटे चले जाएंगे and the day is over.
Correct.
And then that keep continuing.
Correct.
Alright. So this is like looking at life like a consultant, I think, like looking at the calendar, putting it on.
I don't know whether it's
Excel
looking as a consultant. It's looking like a problem solver. I think consultant is about advice. Here, I think you're changing your life habits.
But what's the first principle here? Like if I have to apply that everything, literally from my gymming habits to like building a body, is it like trackability? What is measured?
I think it's data.
Data.
Yeah, it's data. If you measure it, you will do something about it. If you don't measure it, you won't do anything about it, right? I think, look, I started wearing a ring, right? It's made a big difference to how I think about sleep.
Yeah, same.
Now, rationally, there is no reason. I mean, we all are intelligent people. We all know sleep is important. Everybody's read the Why We Sleep book, right? Why is it that you don't change? If you get a sleep score every morning, then you don't drink the previous day, or you don't watch that last 20 minutes, or you don't spend the blue screen thing, right?
That's true.
So the minute you start measuring things, I think you start changing them.
Okay, coming back to Myntra, 2019, it's over. You're getting into Medlife. Why did you leave Myntra? What happened? Medlife?
Very simple, actually. I think Walmart sale happened. I felt like I wanted to be more of an entrepreneur. A lot of the people, Benny, Sachin, all had sort of left and were doing different things. And it looked like entrepreneurship seemed like an interesting thing. I'd seen the success, maybe as a more professional CEO, but I'd seen the success of entrepreneurship and taking some risks. So I felt like it's important to sort of go out and try it. Right? Why Medlife? I was looking for something where I could invest money.
You put your mother money is.
Yeah, I put money in. I bought 10% of the company. It was a fascinating space. I actually feel healthcare still is one of the least consumer-oriented businesses, right? Because you have a doctor, you have a very big expert sort of view to life, and nobody really cares about the end consumer, which is the patient. So I felt like, could you change that? I mean, e-pharmacy was one element of it, but we had diagnostics, and right, you could do many, many things with it. So that's why I did Medlife. Again, the people team continues. Prashant and Tushar were the two founders. Both are fabulous people. Part of the sort of Alchem family, and they've sort of put their own money in, which was always a good sign, right? Yeah. You sort of believe in it. And so got in, went through some tough times, went through some good times, but we eventually sold to Pharmacy. And we sold, I think, at the right time. I think there was consolidation happening. Pharmacy, of course, is going through its own journey up and down, but felt like consolidation was the right answer for the industry. So that's the other thing. I think knowing when to sell is an important thing, right? I think sometimes we all let our egos get in the way.
Correct. Yeah, you mentioned this.
And I think it's important to not have ego and think about value creation for shareholders, value creation for everybody, and eventually about yourself. If you put it in that order, eventually good things happen.
Like how do you decide? Like how do you decide when to sell, when not to sell?
So I felt, the way the framework for thinking about it is what's good for the company, what's good for the shareholders, what's good for you. If you could do it in that order, of course, what's good for you is also important. It's not like it's not important. But if you do it in that order, I think you make the right decision. And I think we absolutely did the right decision by selling Medlife at that point of time, right? In hindsight.
Yeah.
You don't know at that point of time, of course, but in hindsight, and everybody made lots of, good return on their invested capital. All of that happened. And I think, so that was a very important lesson learned. Leave your ego behind. Sort of do what's right for the company. And I think that sort of helped me. I think as I think about brand.me and what I'm doing and how I think about, we've bought a lot of businesses, right? It was really helpful, by the way, in sort of talking to people who sold the businesses to us on why they should sell. Right? Because you've gone through that experience yourself.
Yeah.
Sort
Initially,
of
nobody was selling to you, and then you had to speak to them. All of that's what happened.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the question comes from a space of if we can learn from other people's mistake and try to implement it, it works. But the hard truth also is that I feel जब तक कि वो आप खुद एक्सपीरियंस नहीं करते वो होता भी नहीं आपसे.
Yeah, I'm telling you, everybody told me fundraising would be very hard. Okay? Till I went to Medlife and 30 people said no to me. You don't recognize it. Right? You're saying, I was in Myntra and Flipkart, every round was
But it's difficult for someone of your pedigree also.
Yes, absolutely. Right? And you have to go stand and you have to go wait and you have to basically get a lot of no's. And it's humbling, right? And you don't realize it. Intellectually, it's hard. But till you do it, it's very, very, you don't realize it. Right? And look, again, especially if you're a startup founder, people only see the highs. People never see the lows. Right? And I think there is a lot of lows and a few highs. Right? So I think just realizing that mentally for yourself is important.
Fortunately, the 20% highs make up for the lows.
Actually, by the way, Ayush, my one advice would be don't let the highs or the lows get to you. I know it seems very philosophical, but I think that it's not one compensating the other. Both are important. The lows are also learning experiences.
Take a stoic approach. I think the lows are okay because the lows also teach you something. Again, it's the little bit of don't take an external marker to life. The high and the low is in somebody else's eyes, right? Not in yours. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just what is a high is like immaterial, right? Yeah, it's just difficult to like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just really hard. I think you have to go through enough of them.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Okay, now you sell Medlife business. Now, what happens before you start BrandMe and why? What's the why behind BrandMe?
Yeah. So
6 months, no? Period?
6 months. 4 months.
Sure.
I would say building consumer brands is something that I've always wanted to do and always believed in. From the Myntra days to the Medlife days, I'm a big believer that brands carry value and brands can be built. So felt like it was an interesting opportunity. Again, going back a little bit to the same framing. Large opportunity, high gross margin. If you build a company, it may be hard, but if you build it for 10 years, you'll build something special.
Time and gross margin, these two things.
Time and gross margin. Both felt like interesting. The first question actually was, should I start a company or not? Or should I get into investing? Or should I get into...
Yeah, you had the option.
You had the option, right? And I think there was a lot of soul searching. I realized that I'm an operator. I like doing things. I like building things. I'm not inherently an investor. There are parts of investing that I like. The intellectual parts of it. But I like building companies and legacy. Right? So you have to sort of deeply introspect on what brings you energy.
You have the ick to keep doing, I think. The restlessness of building.
Restlessness of building. I think a great term. So I think it's also the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's I really felt that I introspected. I felt like I have another innings. I'm 48 now, right? This was when I was 44. So I felt like the next 10, 15, 20 years, I want to sort of build, right? So so that was the first sort of marker, saying, be clear that, I'm not going to be an investor. I'm going to be building something. So that took a lot of time and deliberation, speaking to a bunch of people that I'm close to. Second was what to build them, right? When I started, one of the things that we keep often getting asked is, are we the Thrasio of India? Right? And I don't want to be X of Y of anything. I want to be something that we build. So the X of Y is actually simplification of a problem.
Yeah.
I feel like global consumer brands from India can be built. So why did I pick the space? I felt like it was a compounding of my experiences. So how do you pick a space? One is the intellectual part, which is large TAM, high gross margin. The second is, are you going to be able to add value to that space? What is the new insight that you bring or the skill that you bring that will allow the company to be successful?
Yeah.
And I felt like this combination of Myntra, Medlife and McKinsey all three in McKinsey product development, all three sort of came together for me on what we needed to do with Brand.me, right? Brand.me, actually, if you think about it, we bought a set of companies and brands. We sort of said we will be in two spaces, health and wellness and lifestyle. And we said, by the way, the companies that we bought or the brands that we bought have something that is special about them, and we know how to scale them. We know how to multiply them, right? And those were a set of skills that I thought I brought to the table, given all three of my experiences, right? So I felt like it was a natural product market fit for me as a founder.
Correct.
If you think about product market fit, there's a product market fit for a founder as well, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like this was the right thing.
Founder company fit, yeah.
So I felt like it was a fascinating space. I always thought it was going to take a long time to build. I wanted to do this for the next 20 years, right? Also the slight advantage, there are many disadvantages, but the slight advantage of starting later in life is, you don't have the same financial pressures as a younger founder in some level, right? And you sort of take a little bit of a long-term view and say, look, I want to build for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
You'll go through ups, you'll go through downs, but I want to keep building for 20 years. And that's what I want to do, right? So a lot of soul searching, spending time with Sandhya, my wife, and, a few mentor, investor type people. And then sort of came to the fact that I think we can build global consumer brands over India. That's how it started.
But more on the soul searching part, like what are the questions that you are asking yourself or other people about you?
The first is, do I have energy to run it for 20 years? I'm 44. 20 years, and building is hard. Building is 24/7, right? Do I have the energy to do it? And the answer, at least when I spoke to most of the people that were friends with me, or when I asked myself the question, I felt like yes. I still work quite hard, and I feel excited every day that I come to work. So that was the first question. The second question is, are you okay with a lot of ups and downs, right? Instead of being steady. You could go join a venture capital firm. Life would be much easier, right? Here you're going to have ups. You said the 20% ups which are very high, 80% downs which are very low. Am I okay for that emotional ride, right? And the answer to that also was yes, because I felt like the vision of building global consumer brands from India was strong enough that I was okay with the highs and the lows.
Fair.
Right? I would say these were the two big questions at least going through my head. It was not about value creation, none of that. It was basically these two questions for me. It's been good.
Was it the first time you did soul searching at 44 or before that you have done?
I've done lots of soul searching. I did lots of soul searching before leaving McKinsey. I think from McKinsey to Myntra to Medlife. See, it's a little bit of a progression, right? You're a professional consultant. You become a CEO. You become part founder. And then you sort of take all the risk and become a founder. I think it's a progression.
Yeah.
So each of them is an important step, and they're not easy. And also, I think, look, the later you do in life, one of the things is you get more scared of failure. The cost of failure actually becomes higher.
Yeah.
Not financially, but reputationally. Right? So there are two forces working against each other, right? Financially, you're a lot more stable because, you've made money through McKinsey, through...
How can you fail now?
Yeah, But reputationally, you worry a lot, right? You said, you're only as good as your last success. Right? Should you leave when you're on top? Why should you again take the same amount of risk? Etc. Right? It's like again getting back in, starting from scratch, getting into the and so that's a hard one. And there I think the long-term picture of saying there will be 5 global brands that you would have helped create from India kept in my head. And I said, okay, it's fine. If the probability of that is 1%, it's still okay. Because if you get to that 1%, you still are great. And then you keep telling yourself, okay, at least you're not financially dependent so much. Right? Yeah. So the combination of those two, I think that's the soul searching. Reputational risk versus financial risk.
And if you can go deep, I'm asking this again from a 25-year-old perspective because I feel 25-year-olds today do much more soul searching. Sometimes not even required, but they still do a lot more soul searching than probably you would do at when you were 25. But what are the best ways to do it? Personally for me, if I just share quickly, I would just travel. I would try to meet as many people as possible, ask as many questions as possible. On the personal, what is it that I want to do? I still personally don't know the answer to it. And the second is, as you mentioned, the intellectual side of it. Okay, what's happening in AI? So I spent 10 days in SF meeting AI people and all that. So both the parallel, exactly as you mentioned. But what would you do?
So I'll tell you what I do, and then I'll tell you maybe a framework to think about it. I think the first is whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Right? If you're an introvert, soul searching alone and spending time is a better answer. If you're an extrovert, meeting a lot of people and getting input is a better answer, right? It's just from a framing standpoint. I'm an extrovert, so meeting people was helpful. Although in the case of Brand.me, I didn't meet so many people given COVID. I talked to a lot of people, but I didn't meet a lot of people, right? I think you should make these decisions from your heart as opposed to your brain. I think starting a company is never an intellectually correct answer. If you sort of take any probability adjusted, risk adjusted factor always is low of success. Therefore, you have to believe. And what causes that belief is, do you get really excited about the possibility of what this idea could be 10 years from now? If that is exciting enough for you, then you take the risk. If it's not, you don't. So I think from a soul searching standpoint, that's what you have to sort of ask yourself. The way I do it is, I paint a picture of what Brand.me will be in 2031. We started in 2021. 10 years from now, what would the company be? Right? That's when I come up with this, 4 global brands that become known in 10 countries. And, I'm sure that will change. But having that mental picture makes it exciting. And is that excitement worth the pain? Is what you have to sort of ask yourself, right? I think that's the soul searching. The second soul searching is depending on life stage. If you're a 25-year-old, you have less to worry about. In my case, you have to sort of figure out, am I okay putting my kids through college? Right? I mean, people don't talk about all of those things, right? But the reality is those are important when you're starting later in life. And, that is a little bit more rational. But you sort of ask yourself, are you in the position to take the risks that you want to take? Right? And that's how I sort of make the decision.
21, we are at Brand.me. You have raised money, you're ready to go. What is the mindset and how has it changed in the last 4 years?
I think the vision of building consumer brands hasn't changed. Right? What the consumer brands are in has changed. How you build them has changed, right? So the vision hasn't changed, but the how keeps changing. And that's also the nature of startups, right? So what did we do? We bought about 20 brands, call it maybe 20, 22, over the next 12 months, which is a lot of buying.
That's a lot of buying.
Right? We got I think many right, some not so right, and I think we sort of put them together. I always wanted to be in 2 spaces, though that hasn't changed much. Health and wellness. We thought of it as beauty, personal care, but we sort of made it health and wellness because it's the more true definition of what we're doing.
Correct. Okay.
And lifestyle. Why those 2 spaces? High gross margin. High TAM. Ability to build brands. See, some spaces lend themselves better to building brands because it lends themselves to storytelling. Right? Others don't. They're more functional by definition. So that's why we decided these 2 areas. I think we've done well. Net, hindsight, looking back, there's still a long way to go in terms of where the vision is. But we have now 4 or 5 brands which are large, which are global, which are market leaders in the spaces that they're in. And I feel like that's a great start. It's, in 4 years, there's a lot to do, right? And that's what we've done so far. And I think the non-business part of it, I think we have an outstanding team and an outstanding culture, which I think matters. I'm doing stuff with people that are excited by building brands every day. We have, the average age must be 24, 25.
That's it?
Yeah, at Brand.me, maybe 25, 26, but in that range, right? So I get to work with young people every day, which is huge learning for me, right? So the journey is as important as the destination. So I think where we are, I feel, is a very interesting spot, right? We have had good initial success. We've built some scale. Now there's an opportunity to build out truly global consumer brands. And I think that's going to take the next 10 years to do, right? We may go public soon, all of that, but those are all points in a journey. The vision is 4 brands that are truly global consumer brands, recognized, right? It can be in a space which may be smaller, but global, but we want to be market leaders in each of those spaces.
What do you think is the biggest mistake you made in the last 4 years?
Many, I think, Ayush, many mistakes. I think focus is important. So narrowing down and saying I will focus on 10 brands, and those 10 brands will drive a lot of the revenue, out of which 4 are the power brands. I think took a little bit of time. You didn't know which those 10 would be. it needs experimentation, it needs work, right? I think getting to focus, not being too broad, but focusing, I think is one big thing I think I've learned in the last thing, right? The last 4 years. Second, I think is building brands takes time, right? I mean, there are lots of fascinating stories, but nothing gets built in a very short period of time. So you have to build over the long term, being alive, continuing to push, making sure that we're doing better today than we did yesterday. I think that's the other thing, right? Patience, I guess, is the second lesson learned. It takes time and patience and care to build brands, and that takes effort. The third thing is, by the way, getting the right team. I think that's also been fascinating, right? Different stages require different teams, right? Scale, brand maturity, all of that requires. So finding the right people for the right roles and making sure that we keep at it has actually been the other one.
What's your philosophy of hiring? How do you hire people? Who do you not hire? Who do you hire?
First and foremost is culture.
Culture fit.
I don't hire people independent of how good they are if they're a bad culture fit.
Which is, I feel difficult to do because, like, at least at my level, I feel sometimes such a good skilled person can give me short-term benefits.
Yeah. So I've learned this lesson the hard way, I think, over the last 10 years in startups. I think whenever I've made that compromise, it's come back to bite me. So I don't do them anymore. So I think culture fit is like a multiplier. So it's culture fit times competence. It's multiplication. So if culture fit is 0-1, if you are a 0 independent of how good your competence is, you don't take them. Right? So that's number one. Number two is I look for learnability. Right? Because what we're doing, nobody else has done. Nobody has built consumer brands at scale from India. So you can't hire for experience. You can hire for learnability. So that's the second thing I look for, learnability. Can you learn? Can you keep compounding? Is the second big thing I look for. The third I look for is energy. This is not a 9-to-5 job. I'm looking for missionaries, not employees. Right? So do you bring energy to the table? Right? Do you sort of own something? Almost everybody here has stock options, right? I would say it's important to sort of feel stock options are not for value creation alone. Stock options are so that you are a part owner of the company. And I'm a real believer in that, right? If the brand does well, the company does well, you should do well. You should feel like an owner. So ESOPs are a way for you to feel like an owner. I want owner mindset. I want every brand manager here to be an owner. And I think, so I look for energy and ownership. So those are the three things I look for.
I wanted to spill some secret question that you ask to...
I actually asked the same question. It's not a secret, but I asked the same question, which is what's the most difficult problem you solved? And explain it in a lot of detail. It tells you a lot about the person. Right? What's the most difficult problem you've actually solved? Why was it difficult? What did you do personally to make that problem solved? How did you work with other people? I go into lots of detail. You spend 35-40 minutes on just that one problem. I think it gives you a lot. The second thing I do is I actually give an assignment for everybody. It's a current problem at brand.me that we're working on. And I basically tell them, please take a week, put something together and come back to me. And I get two things out of it. One, I learn how they think. Two, they actually then become very they understand what it is to think inside the problems of brand.me. So they don't come in and it's not a surprise to them because they've sort of spent some time. And you get a lot out of it, right? How have they thought about it? How have they done the research? I don't give them any data. It's just a problem statement. Whatever external research you can do, you do. And the depth at which you do it sort of tells you something.
Interesting. What have you seen in 25-year-olds? Patterns, good and the bad. I didn't know the average is 25. That's
so the good is, I think, new ideas, a new take on what consumers want, right? How should you think about like a consumer? Because many of our products are sold to 25 to 35-year-olds. So I think they bring that in. I think that's the good. Second is, I think they're very purpose-driven. Many times it's less about, they don't do it because you're being asked to do it. They do it because they believe in doing it. Does that make sense? I mean, I think it's a little bit more purpose-driven. And I think, therefore, that fits in well with my belief also. So I think that works well. So if you give purpose, it's not about telling somebody what to do. It's about them believing in it and sort of doing
They're already aligned.
Yeah. I think the two things is, one, I would say, is consistency and longevity. I think people still jump too much. Right? You need some time in order to grow. You need some time in order to really learn. I think there is no shortcut in life. Right? You have to sort of spend a lot of time, hard work to get where you got to get to. Right? So I think there are no shortcuts. I think that's the one thing I would say. I think you need to be at it for long periods of time in order to be good at something.
So you're feeling like Gen Z's
Just too much jumping around. Yeah. I mean,
why is it happening? Is it money? Is it like burnout? Is it?
I would say it's a combination. I think sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's lifestyle. Saying I have different things that I want to sort of focus on. I think sometimes it's also, you have to give things time. You can't get bored too quickly. A lot of people get bored immediately, right? And I think it's a real problem, I think, in Gen Z. I think, how do you not get bored? And that has to come from within, right? I mean, it's not, an organization can't keep giving new problems to you because you're bored. You have to find a way to sort of say, how do I be less bored and actually enjoy what I do? Yeah. I have the same question every time. I end the meeting with the same question, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you after this meeting? 1 being, I should leave this company right now and find another job. 10 being, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me since sliced bread. Where are you? Right? And I think it's fascinating to get that, right? Because you then get a little bit of a pulse of the room. It's not a survey. It's an immediate pulse of the room and the team. And then you sort of figure out what is the intervention that you need to move an 8 to a 10, a 9 to a 10, right? So I use these little hacks to sort of continue to sort of figure out where people are, because most people don't open up.
Yeah.
These number type things are an easy way to get a little bit of a pulse of where the team is.
Do you think today's entrepreneurs can actually create long-term high time value without understanding tech properly?
No,
right?
I don't think so.
You have to
I think so.
You have to get your hands dirty into it, understand,
I think so.
or have a CTO co-founder.
Or have a CTO co-founder, or, it depends obviously on what you're trying to do. If you're building a tech product, of course you need to. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying even for a regular business, look, we are building consumer brands, but in a digital first way.
There's so much tech involved in your
So much tech involved. If you don't have, you need an enthusiasm for technology as a leader. Right? If you don't have enthusiasm for tech, I think it's very hard to build.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Indians, specifically the non-tech Indians, get really scared from lack of understanding of AI and tech. Yeah. How do you stay ahead of that?
So look, I'll give you a real example. Yesterday, Friday, we actually had a prompt engineering learning session. So we are into learning at Brand.me. We do lots and lots of learning sessions. It can be around, a brand manager saying, how did I do the right consumer insighting, to here is a viral marketing piece that I've done and can we all learn from it, etc. So we actually, people schedule these 1 hour sort of learning sessions usually on a Friday. Yeah. So the one that we had now was actually on prompt engineering. Our head of engineering actually did it. Usually, by the way, in these sessions, 15, 20 people join. We have 600 people, 15, 20 join because everybody's busy, everybody has stuff to do. Yesterday, 120 people joined. And it was about how do you actually do prompt engineering with ChatGPT or Perplexity. What do you need to do to get it right? And I think it was fascinating. I attend almost all of them, right? And I think that's a good way to stay abreast of what's happening, right? I think as a leader, if you can basically be vulnerable about your lack of knowledge, I think it's 50% of the battle. Don't pretend that you know everything. Actually, you don't know everything, right?
100%.
And the second is, don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Like I probably ask the most stupid questions, across all of the meetings that we do because I don't understand everything. But you should feel free to ask. And I think there are 2 advantages. One, you learn something and you become smarter. The second is you create a culture in the organization of people asking questions.
Yeah.
No?
Leader asking the question just makes them comfortable that, he doesn't know.
Yeah, he doesn't know. And then I can also ask questions.
Yeah. How are you personally staying out of the curve? With so much work.
Yeah.
I personally feel like, I'm running a company, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. How do I research on AI? How do I get deeper into it? And that's the excuse in my mind is giving to me.
Yeah.
You still take out time. How do you stay ahead of technology?
I do. So I basically do 2-3 things. One is, I think I figure out on average an hour and a half a week, maybe 2.5 hours a week, where I actually devote to learning. It can be a Saturday morning, it can be a Friday morning. I'm an early morning person. I get up early, right? So I basically 5, yeah. So I'm able to sort of say, and nobody, this is Bangalore, right? So nobody comes to work before time. So you have lots of free time in the beginning. And I use it to sort of figure out how to learn. And I either read articles, or I read a blog, or I listen to a podcast, right? So many different ones. But I would say, for example, I've been reading a lot about how leaders need to embrace AI. I think there's been a bunch of articles by McKinsey, BCG, Payne. So I've been reading through them.
So the reports of
how do they use it, what do people do, how do they learn, etc. And I think it's a great way to sort of get up to speed and sort of do it. The other is you play around with it, right? I keep sort of doing market entry strategies. One of the easiest things you can do is to get ChatGPT to challenge your thinking.
Challenge the thinking.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but as a prompt, you can basically, as a leader, say, I want you to challenge my thinking on this decision, and then give it some, right, what you have thought about. And I think it's fascinating, right? Or if you go into a negotiation, I usually try and sort of use ChatGPT to say, what are the 5 things that they think they might say, right? And so that gives you a little bit of familiarity on the ground, right, in terms of what you do. The other thing, because we're in the consumer brands business, this is about technology, but the other thing we actually do a lot is to go spend time with consumers, right? You can go across to a mall and spend like half a day and just observe what consumers are doing. And I think that's quite fascinating as well from a learning standpoint.
I mean, when I was in SF also, I spoke to a lot of AI companies. I was trying to meet them. In the India versus US thing, I want to ask you this question. Like, I personally feel that we are way behind when it comes to
AI. By the way, fully agree with that.
Yeah,
actually.
Like if you want to do something in tech and AI, I feel
you should be in SF.
Just move to SF.
Yeah, Pacific Heights you should be in.
Palo Alto, Pacific Heights, all those places. But you are saying, like, the learning from this podcast, that's not true for D2C or for consumer goods. For that, you can build in India to the globe.
Yeah, because they are not fundamental models. You're not building. See, I think there are 2-3 areas in AI in India that I think you can do very well. One is applications that you build and agents that you build, which actually transform fundamental brand building processes for consumer brands. I think that's very doable here, and I think it's huge value add, number one. Number 2 is I think India infrastructure can be a big one. Infrastructure for AI.
At the back end of it.
At the back end can be another big opportunity. I think we're very behind on fundamental models in research because we just haven't done it.
Yeah.
So the DeepSeek is an outcome, right?
For that, you
10
need
years
the
of
China
R&D, right?
thing.
I mean, you need 10 years of R&D, right? And I think we haven't done that. So I think that needs to change. I think you need large sources of capital, and I think you need a long-term view.
Yeah.
So I do think it's an important topic for India to do. But I think, look, my business is brand.me. As far as brand.me is concerned, the biggest is application of AI into business transformation processes that can actually fundamentally change things. Not make them more efficient, but change things. I'll give you an example. We run 100,000 campaigns. You can move bids up and down. We run it on a tech platform.
Correct.
Right? With an AI agent.
But this capability you had before AI also.
Yes, but what's different with AI is actually the ability to make decisions. You were doing rule-based ads.
Correct.
Now you can actually have decisions that are being made by AI agents much better, like a human being. Right? You basically have a profit maximization or a revenue maximization goal, and then the agent sort of keeps learning. So you're not rule-based anymore, right? You're trying to make a bunch of decisions that keep improving on decisions, and you can limit the amount of loss that you want. So it's a very different. It's like actually having or training the world's best performance marketeer and having them on 24/7.
Correct.
Very different from rule-based ads.
Correct.
So I think there's an opportunity to transform.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I think the next 10 years, this will explode. Not next 10 years, next 2 years, this will explode.
Yeah.
Right?
What are you personally excited about with brand.me?
I think there are 3 things that I'm excited about. One is, look, brand.me, we're building in global niches, which means it's a large TAM. We're building market leaders. I think, can we really build a global consumer brand fully from India, more online first than online only? I think that's fascinating for me. That's one big area that I'm excited about. The second area I'm excited about is just transformation of brand building through tech. Right? We spoke a lot about it during the course of this, but really, how do you use now generative AI, but many other things to sort of transform every element of, if you thought about brand building as a product, could we productize it, right? Using tech. And I think that's a different way to think about brand building. And I think we are on the journey. So that's the second thing. The third thing is I would be very excited on if we can build the new age global consumer company in terms of people and culture.
What does that
So,
mean?
can we be like, people often talk about Unilever. Like everything when you talk about brand building, right? You talk about Unilever. 10 years later, I want to talk about I want people to talk about brand.me, saying, okay, we are the ground for building digital consumer first brands. I think those are the three things I'm excited about.
Final question for you is, what are you most scared of right now?
I don't know whether I'm scared of anything.
Scared, worries.
Worried. I would say, look, we want to see how can we be a public company over a period of time. I've never done that before. So it's a large responsibility, right? I mean, you're suddenly going from one set of investors to another set of investors, which many are retail, and you're on a quarterly clock. I think so that worries me in terms of how do I do it? How do I do it well? And how do I make it successful? IPO itself is not the worrying part. You want to be able to compound in the public markets for a long period of time. So how do you set brand.me up for success such that, I don't know, 10 years after it goes public, it continues to compound? I think that's one area that I keep worrying about. Saying, how do I actually think about it? How do I make sure that that happens? So that there is a big compounding uptick post-IPO. Not at IPO is fine. It's one moment of time.
Yeah.
But how do you sort of
But does that confidence not come from the track record?
No, I think because they've never been a public company.
No, like track record in the sense that there has been constant evolution. You mentioned
Yes,
it, right? Like
yes.
from like Myntra, you went to Medlife, and then Mensa.
Yeah.
And then, like it just isn't it just like feel like, हाँ अभी कर लेंगे.
I think best entrepreneurs are always paranoid. I'm always paranoid. I always worry, right? I mean, in my mind, I think anybody who says otherwise is probably just sort of saying it. I always worry, right? I'm always excited, but I always worry, right? I want to do the next thing that I do really well.
Yeah.
I haven't gone public. So I want to make sure that we have actually a great public offering and that people make lots of money on us, right? That's what you want for a public offering.
100%.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much, Anand.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you giving so much
Appreciate
time.
it. Yeah. Good. Thanks.
अगर आपको ये बिजनेस पॉडकास्ट पसंद आया तो आपको आई बटन पे क्लिक करके हमारी प्लेलिस्ट देखनी चाहिए, जहाँ पे हम बहुत सारे फाउंडर्स को बुलाते हैं अलग अलग इंडस्ट्री से और उनसे बात करते हैं एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के बारे में और उन्होंने कैसे स्टार्ट किया. इससे आप सीख के आप भी कल खुद का बिजनेस स्टार्ट कर सकते हो. सो आई बटन पे क्लिक करके वो प्लेलिस्ट जरूर देखना.